Alright, the first thing for reassembly is we're going to upgrade our servo. You don't have to upgrade your servo. You can put the stock servo back in if you want. But because of the build we're doing with this truck, we're going to upgrade the servo. We have the Emax servo. It comes with a bag full of bits and other things. There's your servo. It's going to have a long old cable on it. And then we also picked up from Ninjara a new arm. Get this out of here. New arm. Comes with some screws with it. And the tray. So we got a new aluminum tray, new aluminum arm, Emax servo. That's going to upgrade this truck from the original servo and all plastic. So let's go ahead and put the tray on the servo. Now when you mount this, it's only going to go one way. If you can tell, if you're too far forward, it's not going to mount on there. So it's kind of self-explanatory. Set it to where it's flat and nice and even there. And then take you some of these shorter bolts here. That one's in. Now just remember, with everything with these little trucks, there is a torque to some things, but you don't want to go too tight because you will strip them, because they're not exactly high tolerance stuff. Okay. All right, now that we got our servo and its tray mounted, we can set that to the side because we're not going to need it quite right yet. We got to put some more stuff back in this housing first. So go ahead and put all the extra stuff that came with it back in a bag because you're not going to need them. You have a couple of extra screws and whatnot that came with it. Put those all back in there. Take your steering horn, set it off to the side. All right, now back to our truck. So what you want to remember is if you're going to put new gears in it, they're going to need to be greased up a little bit. The old gears have a bit of grease on them. You don't want to put a lot. If you put a lot, it's going to jam them up. You just want to put a bit of grease on them, just so that they turn really, really nice. Okay. So get those open. Now when you open this up, if I can get it open here, let's get this out of the way. You're going to see some stuff in here. Don't lose anything, because you're going to need it all. Okay. Okay, so you get your new gears, and then make sure you have 4 tiny little O-rings. We got our 4 O-rings right there. They're tiny little. But now is the point where you go ahead and grease these up a little bit. Like I said, not too much. A little bit of grease. With them, I'm using the same red grease that I use in my big Jeep. It's going to do the same exact thing for you. Grease up them gears. Okay. Now once those are all good and greased, then we take all these little O-rings that we have. If you look at the old one, you've got an O-ring on either side of that. So you're going to want to put one same thing on either side of that. And they can be a little bit difficult to get on there. All right, come on. There it goes. And then slide it all the way down next to the gear. And then one on the other side. Again, slide it all the way down to the gear. So you got one on this side and one on this side. Now when you put it in, remember this, it's going to have a longer shaft on the back with a hole in it. That's for the screw that goes into the drive shaft. Okay? So you want to take and put this one in the top portion. You've got an upper and a lower. The screw looking one goes up in the upper. And the gear looking one goes down in the lower. Okay. Now, this is where you put those bearings that were inside here back in. One on either side. So now you have your both your upper, your lower, and both bearings. They're in there now. Now remember, we are upgrading our drive shafts now. If you are not upgrading your drive shafts, you just take your old ones, and at the end of that, if you can tell, that's flat. It's not circular, it's flat. Inside that worm gear, or inside that gear, if you look right there, that's flat also. This end fits just inside there. So when you stick it inside, that's what locks everything in. Okay. So you may have to turn that gear just a little bit, turn the drive shaft just a little bit, just to get them to lock in. And then you do that on either side, and you'll feel it. They'll lock in nice. You'll feel them nice and easy in there. So let's take our new drive shafts. These are from RC all-wheel drive. These are CVD drive shafts. And I'll show you what the difference in those here in a second is, as soon as we get them out. All right. Now, with these drive shafts, if you look in here, it moves all the way around freely, and it's not bound up in there. Okay. Now, to get these apart, you have to slide this housing up, and then they come apart and all that good stuff. The difference is these have a pin. They're called dog bone. They have a pin that connects to this side. So if you see that, I'll take that out just so you can see it. This end goes into that end, and that's how they turn. And that's the dog bone. And if you notice, they don't turn as easy without binding or even falling out from each other. That's why we like to upgrade them to the CVD. And like I said, we'll go ahead and install these. And they also have that flat spot. We're going to search in there for that little feeling, for that flat spot inside that gear. There it goes. And when it goes in there, now you can see how it's flexing it. So that's nice. That's in there good. Take the other one. Now both sides are in. And if you can tell, I've got drive shafts hanging out of both sides now. Now, since we have all of that stuff in there and these are kind of just hanging out, now is when we want to you either want to put your cover back on, or like what we're going to do, we are going to upgrade to a 10-gram brass cover. What that's going to do is it's going to help with our center of gravity. It's going to bring our center of gravity down. Now these covers I got from Injara, and they come with new bearings. Or bushings, I'm sorry, new bushings. So you don't have to take the other one out of the old one, but you do have to remember to put the new one in this one. Okay? Just sits in there. Okay, take your cover, and remember, the wings go up. When you set it in there, make sure that bushing goes onto that top gear nice and easy. Everything's going to set in there, just like that. And then take your 4 shorter screws and put them in the bottom. You do not want to tighten these completely down because it is a cover that's covering gears. You want to do it in a in a bit of a star. So you basically want to go bottom, top, and then switch sides, and then top, bottom. That way it gets seated properly. Okay, now that they're in, go ahead and snug them down. Remember, use that cross technique like I said. It's like tightening down lug nuts on your tires, star pattern, but you know, there's only 4 of these instead of a bunch. All right. Now that that's in and it's securing everything back here, it's easier at this point to go ahead and put your drive shaft back in. Now if you look at your drive shaft, there's only one way it's going to go back in, because the drive shaft itself has a half moon shape. If you can see that, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it has a half moon shape, and it's only going to go back onto that shaft one way. There it goes. Take your little screw, put that back in. Right in there. Get that snug. And then line up your 2 halves. And set it in. Okay. Now for your servo. If you're remounting your old servos, the same way, just put the old servo in. We're putting a new servo in. Remember to always have this gear to the left side of the truck when you remount the servo, okay? You want it to the left side. Now, the long bolts are what goes into the top part of the cover that holds the servo in place. Okay. Got to give a little bit of pressure on this side of the servo just to get holes lined up. are. So now servo's reinstalled. Diff cover's on. Gears are in. Drive shafts are on. So we can move on to the next. Portion. We will continue to finish installing the servo. Now, if you've done a 4-link like I have, you're going to have 2 screws, one on each side for the 4-link. If you're doing your Y-link still, then you're just going to have 1 screw through the whole thing. Okay. Let's go ahead and reassemble the 4-link so this is all locked in together. Get this side. I like to put the screw through as I hold it. That way I can a little bit easier to line things up with. There we go, that one's in. Same thing this other side. Okay, that side's in. Now the servo's locked in. We're pretty close. Everything's good so far. If you're putting your old knuckles back on, and you look at them here, you can see that they're angled. Okay? There is a left and a right. Then what you're going to do is, if you look at your housing, they're angled also. So if you put these on to where the angle's opposite, then they go straight. If you put them on to where the angle matches, they're not straight. They angle down or up, or just not where they're supposed to be. So if you look at this angle, and this one's cut short, long, then you want to do long, short, and they'll be straight out. Now with these, we are upgrading to these Injera weighted steering knuckles. And all of these upgrades are going to help in lowering the center of gravity of this truck. That's why we're doing all of them. These new ones do not come with new bearings like some other of this stuff. So you're going to have to take the ones out of the old and put it in the new. And in order to do that, you just take your drive shaft and pop them out. That one was out of the back. This one is out of the front. Just like that, front and back. and these are the exact same size. Doesn't matter which side. So now, just to see if you got everything correct, and if you're still confused about the cuts on there, just go ahead and slide these on. There we go. That's the one I need. That's this side. The slice, it's further out on the bottom, shallow on the top. So on your knuckle, you want it further out on the bottom and shallow. Yeah. Out, shallow, out, shallow. So you just want it opposite. So when you slide everything in here, it's going to fit nice and snug and look like it's straight. Okay. Now in your bag, you got some bits. You've got screws and little inserts right here. These inserts go in those holes there where the screws go. Get my pliers here because I got big fat fingers. Set them in there. And then take your screw. Line up your hole. And do not tighten them down all the way. And I'll show you why in just a minute after we get the other side assembled. Okay, now if you tighten these down too much, which I'll tighten it down just a little bit here so I can show you. If you tighten them down too much, you can't, it's not going to move very easy. It's not fluid. Okay, so seat them so everything's good. But make sure that they still move, because you want them to be able to turn. If you get it too tight, they're not going to turn. And then the same thing on the other side. And again, don't tighten them down too tight because you still want to be able to steer.